And thanks for joining us here on PM Express. I'm pretty sure you may have noticed by now that the conversation around the wage increase is live. It is the big wage debate. I can actually say, without any shadow of contradiction, that this is possibly going to be one of the most noticeable, most important, most controversial wage debates we'll have for the rest of the year going into 2023. Because of the very peculiar economic times you're in, it is going to be one of those wage debates that will generate a lot of heat and a lot of controversy. It's just starting after the announcement of the new minimum wage, and it is getting a bit of traction here. We're going to look at the demands versus the reality. The demands of the workers versus what the reality says. This is the big wage debate. It affects everyone, almost everybody. We're talking about the economic challenges that we are facing currently. It just raises the obvious question, are wages matching the cost of living that you are having to bear? And that's what the workers have started, and that's what we're going to go into right now. And the starting point from the workers is 60%. They want a 60% increase in the base pay for 2023. And the question jumps at you, obviously, which is 60% being realistic, considering where we are tonight? It is a question that jumps at you. But then if you also flip the coin, why not 60%? Why is that not realistic? Because if you look at where inflation is, just above 40%, and many say that is conservative if you look at that number, and how everything else has gone up, the twin crisis of inflation and the depreciation of the cedi, then this is being fair, right? But if you're also going to negotiations, you don't want to start with a lower number and end at a place that will not necessarily serve the interest of the people you represent when you're talking about the workers. And that's why they put for a 60% increase is what they're asking for. In real terms, though, the increase you're asking for is moving it from the current 3,000. This is an average, on the average, what the public sector worker earns. On the average, is 3,672 cedis. The one that moved to 5,303 cedis. That is a 60% increase. And if you look at the current, that's what it is here. And you want to jump to this. Is that asking too much? Is a fundamental question. Is that asking too much? But then if you ask that question, then you need to also ask the other question. Can the economy bear this particular cost? Can the economy survive if government is going to find money to pay workers this basic amount of money, this average salary increase? We're going to be asking those questions tonight. I will tell you why this is going to be difficult. The next few weeks, there'll be some really difficult conversations between government and labor on agreeing what is fair. Now, if you look at what has happened now with the conversation around the base pay, it really started the day after the minimum wage increase was announced. And for many observers of the space, an increase in the minimum wage is almost always a trigger to a base pay negotiation. If you've given us a 10% increase plus COLA of 15%, and COLA is a cost of living allowance, which comes down to, say, a total of 25%, then we expect something even more when it comes to our base pay. And that's the basic point for the workers, right? That they got the hint that government is willing to increase, but how much is the question. Government doesn't dispute that base pay needs to go up. The question is how much? Is it 60%? Is it 40% to be in sync with the rate of inflation, or what is it? And how do you determine that number? The workers will tell us, and we'll speak to a labor expert. And if you look at the minimum wage over the period, and minimum wage, by the way, it's not the wage you earn at the end of the month. People earn that, but it's a wage below which nobody should earn. And if you compute the new minimum wage of 14.88 pesos, just over 400 cedis a month. So nobody can survive on that currently in the midst of this economic crisis. But there are people earning that, by the way, I must say. But if you see that point here, there's been increases over the years. 2022 increases is seen there. There's a slight 10%. increase in the number. It's not much. It's not much. But the real conversation begins when you begin to look at the minimum wage and say, well, that must indicate what my salary should be, and I'm expecting an increase of a certain amount. You look at the minimum wage in real terms, but in percentage terms, you begin to see that it has been on the downward trajectory in percentage terms, right? And the steepest decline we saw in percentage terms was in 2021 when COVID was in full swing and the grip of it was being felt pretty hard. And then it began to climb in percentage terms after 2021, as we saw there when they agreed that increase, and then it went up all the way, as we've seen that a 10% increase from 7.98%. And so it's going up, but is it going up fast enough in percentage terms? It's a question that the workers have asked. But the important thing to note, as we talk about the minimum wage, and this is a reality of most workers in the public sector and workers generally in Ghana, is that many are living below the poverty line. If you earn anything on the, a day of $2.15, according to the World Bank, you are just on the poverty line. If you earn anything below that, you are below the poverty line. You are extremely poor. And look at the gap that you see here. That gap tells a story. This is where we are currently, even with the increase in the minimum wage. If you convert it into dollar, as people now joke with, they say you begin to cry, shed tears of blood, because you're talking about $1.13, significantly way below what it should be when you look at the subject of what the World Bank says should be the poverty line. So people are significantly way below this poverty line here. This is the reality of many, many Ghanaians below the poverty line. That is alarming, and that is factoring into the 60% that the workers are asking for in terms of the base pay. They want to lift workers significantly above this poverty line, somewhere here in an upward trajectory. But can the economy manage that increase without collapsing further? Because we are in a crisis already. It's a big conversation that we need to have. And when you begin to look at what the rate of depreciation of your currency is, plus the inflation, if you box that into it, what it means to your salary, you begin also to appreciate the worker side of the story, right? And this is a very important statistic and data that brings the story home. So the effect of inflation on salaries has been dire, has been pretty grim. If you were earning 3,000 cedis last year, right? Last year, October. This year, October, your salary hasn't changed. But because of inflation, in reality, you are taking home 1,788. Do you know how much value you've lost on that salary you take home? And that is if it's 3,000. We're talking about the average. We just, assume numbers here, average. You've lost 1,212. So you're actually still taking 3,000 CD salary, but in effect, your salary is worth only 1,788. As much as 1,212 is gone, wiped off by inflation. Those who earn 5,000, who think, I'm okay, I'm in the middle class. Yes, Ghana, when you earn 5,000, you consider yourself middle class. The reality is, the inflation reality is that you are actually taking home 2,980 CDs. As much as 2,000 CDs is gone, is wiped off. Inflation has wiped off that amount from your salary. The higher your salary, the more inflation is eating away into that salary. And that tells a story. So you begin to appreciate why they're asking for 60%. If inflation is a 40.4%, you have to factor that in to whatever salary you're taking right now and just discount that. So if you're earning 5,000, just subtract 2,000 cedi from it. Your real salary is 2,980. So that begins to hit home. So those who are earning below 2,000 cedis, it is quite a dire situation. They are actually earning just in the region of just 1,000 cedis a month. That is the reality of the workers. And they are saying you need 60%. Because 60% then will take you so we are talking about in essence, if you give them 50%, 60% increase, even if government agrees 60%, in reality, the increase they're getting is some 18, this is close to 90. It's not even 20% increase. In reality, that's how much you get on your salary because inflation will take away 40.4 of that 60, right? That brings you down to what? 19.6 or so percent increase in salary. That is an interesting point that the workers are using in the negotiations that they have with government, right? And then you consider the government angle too. Look at this from the finance minister's point of view. And finance minister will pull up this table to the workers in their meeting and say, listen, our wage bill is climbing. It's becoming very, unsustainable. We cannot be doing this to our economy because of that 35.84 billion cedis is what we are spending on salaries alone. Can the economy carry it? And let me put this in context for you, see why this is a big problem for the finance ministry. Because this is the amount that as a country, the total revenue, everything else that we make as a country, the amount, the revenues that multimedia is paying, the revenue that you pay, including your income tax, everything, is 100 billion cedis. That's all that this country generates in terms of revenue. Out of the 100 billion cedis, compensation to pay salaries alone is 3.35 billion, right? And then interest payments is 37 billion. So we're talking about 35% of that is going to pay compensation. This is before we talk about the potential increases in salaries and base pay. And then you have interest payments at 37%. And then you have other items of 27 billion. So the money is gone. By the time you take away compensation and interest, the money is gone. The rest of the money, what is left for roads, schools, water, etc.? Nothing. That's how we've been borrowing. We've been borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. And so when you increase this line item, which the workers are expecting an increase, then our current situation becomes worse. And I wonder, the IMF conversations we are having, how is all these conversations factoring into it? The finance minister is preparing the budget that will be read hopefully on Thursday for 2023. Some agreement needs to be reached. I don't see how the finance minister prepares a budget and doesn't factor in how much he intends to spend on compensation for 2023. Considering that we are on borrowed time when it comes to this economy, awaiting an IMF bailout, something needs to give. Workers legitimately demanding an increase. Government says, hard numbers, I can't afford it. Okay. Where's the middle line? That's what we're going to be exploring tonight when my guests join me here on PM Express. This is a conversation you want to be part of because everybody is affected by this. Even if you're in the private sector, once the public sector workers secure a deal, well, it sends a signal to the private sector also to say, if government is agreeing, government that is in crisis, says is borrowing, can't afford, looking for a bailout, can agree an increase, then the private sector should even do more. So don't think this doesn't affect you. It is a big signal for the employers in the private sector also, watching what government will do and maybe using that as a signal and a basis for conversations in the private sector as well. So let's have this conversation after the break. Stay with me. Enjo Kabonu is the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, joins us in the studio. Joshua Ansah is the Deputy General Secretary, Secretary General of the TUC, joins us on Zoom. And Mr. Osengame, as a labor consultant, joins us via Zoom. Mr. Kabonu, just help us again understand how you arrived at 60%.
Well, we took inflation into consideration. We took into consideration the depreciation of the CD as against major currencies, all leading to high prices, and the fact that price changes is on daily basis. So we compared the work that you just did before I got into the studio, where you looked at real values as against quantum increase in salaries. And you realize that real value in the pocket of people is dwindled significantly, sometimes even to about 50%. So, and what we're talking about, what we are on currently is a COLA addition of 15%. And you know that the dynamics of COLA in relation to salary is a totally different matter. COLA does not deduct SNIT for you. COLA does not deduct Tier 2 for you, yet COLA is taxed. Right, so...
Oh, they tax the COLA?
Yeah, they tax the COLA. Right, so at the end of the day, you may have negotiated 15% for your workers, but the true amount of money that is coming into their pocket is not 15% because the money is subject to tax. Right, so we looked at the current prices of commodities and services, and then we used that as the starting point and asked ourselves the question, what addition will be of any value? So in effect, the 60% that we are asking for is actually not a 60% because there is a 15% that ought to be taken out of the equation.
You're treating that separately.
They treat that as separate. So at the end of the day, even this amount of money that is percentage that is coming out actually do not add any real value money to the worker's salary at the end of the day. And yet, prices of goods and services are going up. The worker will have to go to market to buy goods at exorbitant prices. But something very interesting is happening. Government itself, are they pricing their services to the citizens of this country? So once you have the depreciation of the cedi, it always will have a direct effect on the cost, on the levels of duties that are paid at the ports. So, for example, an importer told me just a few days, and I have it on my phone. Mm-hmm. She shipped goods from China to Ghana and brought the bill of lading so as to prepare for the duties that she will pay when the goods arrive. The amount of money that was quoted as at the time that she did the inquiry was 62,000 Ghana cedis. When the goods arrived and she went to the harbor to clear, it has increased to 152,000 Ghana cedis. Why? Just because the cedi is depreciated. So government itself uses the depreciation of the cedi or the appreciation of the dollar to determine how much people pay at the ports. Can we say, by this behavior, government is contributing to high prices of goods and services on our markets?
What's your conclusion there?
That is what it is. At the end of the day, the worker or the ordinary Ghanaian is the one who suffers. So we factored all these into the negotiations that we are having. And anything less than this will not have any significant tell on our incomes.
I mean, Mr. Ansah, the TUC, is this 60% realistic enough? Does it reflect what is happening on the economy and the workers' desires, as you know?
Thank you very much for the question. And then let me first say a very big good evening to all the workers of this very country and those who are watching this show. First, we have to talk about realities of the day. And the reality of the day is that workers cannot make ends meet. The reality of the day is that the economic situation in this country is unbearable. The reality of the day is that people cannot board transport to and from work. The reality of the day is that people cannot have 3 square meters of the day, and we are workers of this very country. So we factored all these economic hardships, inflation, and the economic mishaps of this very country into consideration. Then we came up with a model figure of 60% as salary increase for this very year. Because anything short of that, then, like you said in your intro, inflation will eat everything away, and the real income that will come to our pocket is about less than 20%. which will not do anything for workers of this very country. So I think that workers have been reasonable, TUC and these members have been reasonable, organized labor is reasonable and active for the 60%. This 60% that we are asking is not even added to the 1.7 relativity increases that is supposed to be added every year, which from 2010 to date, it has never been done. So coupled with all these things, I believe that anything short of our demand of 60% to workers as a big pay for this very year is nothing to write home about if the government is not going to give us that amount. And it's going to have a great program for the people, the workers of this very country, because the reality is that it is hard for workers in this very, very, very country.
Mr. Game, 60%, is it reasonable?
Thank you. Good evening to my friends there. Let me say that I work in the interest of the nurses of this country. I work in the interest of all the scientists. I work in the interest of anesthetists. And so I have deep-seated interest in what is being discussed. The reality is that because of the way the economy is going, maybe there will have to be some paradigm shift in our approach. I think that if there's certainly 60% may be even too small, but the reality is that the employer may not be able to pay it, because if they will have to look for about 5 billion cedis or so to be added to be able to meet it, they cannot. So what do we do? Fortunately for us, we have a Labour Act that speaks for us. Section 113, for the first time in the history of the entire world, in Ghana, we have a National Tripartite Committee which is governed by law. And therefore, we have to find a way of utilizing Section 113, subsection C, which demands that the importance of the economy, we have to demand some answers from the bigger employer, which is also government. And I think that prudency in the management of the national economy would enable us as organized labor to get into the nitty-gritties of how things are going, so that it is about prioritization of how the economy should be managed to enable us to have enough money so that we can have our share. Because, as you rightly said in your intro, the reality is that if you are earning 1,000 Ghana cedis and we have 40.4% inflation on our hands, obviously you are taking home 560 Ghana cedis and not 1,000 Ghana cedis, because inflation would have whittled away that. Even if they are going to do maybe at the national, setting up the national daily minimum wage, if you are going to net, maybe the minimum wage would have been settled, with introducing about restoration. That means they are going to, because they projected 10%, we achieved, as of today, 40.4%. So if you net it, they should have been increasing the national daily minimum wage by 30.4%, so that the people who are earning the national daily minimum wage will have something, we can have parity. But as it stands now, it may not be enough. But the reality is that if they pay it, you and I have to pack and go and stay in Burkina Faso. The country will collapse.
Okay, respond to that for me. That's the reality, right?
Well, when you look at the statistics, that may be sound. But the statistics work in both the supply side and the demand side. So when workers also tell you that looking at the amount of money they are paying for transport, they can come to work only twice a week, the same effect of us packing to go to Burkina Faso will occur. Because somebody who is living in Oyarifa and is coming to work at, let's say, Circle or Accra Central, it's hard his or her transportation fare increase fourfold, and yet the salary is stagnating at the level at which it was at the beginning of the year. So the amount of money that worker could come to work with is dwindled by 50%. So in a week of 5 days, then the worker can come to work only twice a week, because that worker ought to feed his or her family. Now, those who own cars, have a very solid story to tell. The pressure mounts on daily basis because the ex-pump price of petrol increases on daily basis, and there is nothing you and I could do but to go and buy and then suffer the consequences thereof. So, I mean, I can mention there is nothing, when you talk about rent and accommodation now, it's a terrible story to tell. So the question that I want to put out is, if the worker who comes to work 5 days a week, like the parliamentarian asked in Parliament, and I know the parliamentarian was asking that question tongue-in-cheek, yet he was speaking, resonating with a lot of Ghanaians who suffer on daily basis coming to work. Question, will it be fair for the worker who used to come to work 5 days a week to now demand from government that I can come to work 2 days in a week, looking at the amount of money put on transportation fare? And then with all other work that we do in this country, maybe some organizations may be thinking that, well, maybe the time has come for us to go back to the COVID days where people were working, we had a shift system, people were working from home and so on and so forth. But somebody like a medical doctor ought to be present at the theater. The nurse ought to be present in the hospital. The teacher ought to be present in the, because we don't have so high technology in time by way of instruction and all that in this country. The question is, the man at the bottom can simply not survive on the amount of money you are paying him or her. It's as simple as that.
So you introduce this, and I know some private organizations are having this conversation. Should we allow some of the workers who can work from home should work from home, come to work twice a week, etc.? I mean, it has been mooted here. I know HR is considering it. Among workers, public sector, is this conversation even happening? Because the reality is what Mr. Osagame says. Government cannot pay 60% possibly. So maybe something has to give. You have to net off and balance the equation. I'll work 3 times a week, so then, of course, and I can accommodate maybe a 30% increase. Is that conversation even being factored in?
Even this, we don't limit the price increase. We are now talking only about transportation, the to and fro, bringing the worker from home to work and vice versa. That is one. What about the price of Gary? Gary, poor man's friend. That is also doubled.
Or gobe.
Or gobe. That has gone up. Or salt.
Yeah.
Salt. I used not to have reports from the market in the past. But these days, our wives on daily basis come back without even demanding for it, give you a rendition of situation in the market, just because of the price changes and the fact that what you are giving for your wife to take to market is no longer doing what it used to do. Right. The fact of the matter is that every aspect of our lives is being touched negatively by the economic situation that we find ourselves. Every aspect of our lives. My question, how come, and someone ought to be answering these questions, Evans. What did our neighbors do right? I'm not saying that there are no economic effect of the situation on our neighbors, but the levels. Is it a problem with our currency? Then should we be having a conversation about that currency called the cedi? How come that the exchange relationship between the cedi and the CFA, the currency used by all our members, is such that the cedi is taking a hit? There's something debilitating about our economy. And we have to come out and bring it out and deal with it.
In the meantime, though, your salary is at stake. Your survival now is the key.
Until that.
Let me bring in Ms. Ansat. Ms. Ansat, so what about the question Mr. Game raises, the ability of the employer to pay? How is that being factored into the negotiations? Hello, Ms. Ansat.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yes, what I'm saying, Evans, is that as for ability to pay, we started hearing it from the day Adam was born. Anytime there's negotiations between us and the government or employers, that is the word, that is the slogan, that is the song they sing, ability to pay. And that ability to pay has been in existence from Adam up to today. I don't think that is a rare excuse that can wither us away from demanding what we are demanding. Ability to pay, but you can see that after we have been given a peanut, people go out there and we see them not living lives of ability to pay people. Last year and last 2 years, the same stories were told. Things are hard, the economic situation is bad, COVID and this and that and so on and so forth. Workers were forced down 7% and 4% down our throats.
I remember that workers started protesting, demanding the sacking of yourselves and the leaders.
Of all the leaders. Yes. Yes. So what happened after that? What happened to the other privileged people in the society? So we think that that is not the way to go. Look, the capital and labor are together, but it's like people pay attention to capital more than labor. You can bring all the machinery in the world to this country, but without the turning of labor, turning the machinery, you can never have the production. So why is it that when we produce, the excess profit that we are only demanding something small out of it, employers and government tells us that there's no money, the economy is bad, and this and that. I think we have heard it is enough for us. We are no longer going to listen to that. Let us all feel the heat. Let us all share what is there. When you ask the finance minister, the envelope that we are saying that after paying 35 billion out of the envelope, the money is gone. Can you apportion it for us to see that this part of the envelope goes to people A, this part of the envelope goes to people B, and no one can tell us this. So if I'm negotiating with you and we're unable to be fair, you're unable to be truthful to yourself, to tell us what is in the kitty, who is taking what and who is taking what, and you tell us the economy is bad, there's no money, government cannot pay, government cannot afford, then I'm inclined to go with Brother Kabonu by saying that, okay, then we can also say that you will stay at home and come to work once in a week or twice in a week, because somebody taking 500 Ghana cedis and paying transport of more than 1,200 per month. How do you expect that person to come to work every day? How do you expect that person even to get something to eat after paying for the transportation? A family of two, a wife and husband and maybe 2 kids, how would they live in this very country? So all these are things that are there in the face of Ghanaian workers. And enough, and it is time that we try to bring practicality to bear. The no money syndrome, government cannot afford, affordability to pay, and all this must be looked up once again. We don't think this is the time for government to tell us the money is not there and there's no way to. Then if the money is not there, let us also find a way of regulating our work, whether to come to work once in a week, twice in a week, and so on and so forth, to commensurate the money that we are being paid. Yeah, workers have sacrificed a lot, and we are tired of that. This time around, it's not going to be like that. At least you must be compensated for us to see that we're also sacrificing and also contributing to the development of the country.
Mr. Mensah, you said that, but the reality is that we are negotiating for a bailout now. The economy is teetering on the brink of collapse. That is our current reality. So
who caused them? Evans, who caused them? Who caused the bailout? Who caused the going for the bailout? And I believe that this bailout also concerns the wage bill. And they must factor it into it that we have actually paid people low salaries all these years. And this time around, workers are not going to succumb to any minimal increase in salary. They should factor into that. It has come at the right time so that they can factor into whatever negotiation, whatever bailout they are going for. Workers must also be taken care of. We are also human beings. We are also contributing to the development of this very country. Our sacrifices that we have sacrificed.
Okay. Oh, Mr. San's Zoom connection just froze there. But let me bring in Mr. Osinga. Mr. Game, so,
yeah.
Mr. San, do I have you back?
Yes, I'm
but let me bring in Mr.
Evans.
Sorry, wrap up for me. We lost you briefly because the connection froze.
Yes, what I'm saying is that we must also be compensated accurately so that workers can go to work with joy. Workers can go to work and work with their heart. Teachers can go to the classroom and teach from their heart. Operators can go and operate the machine very well. Everybody in this country is an important entity that contributes to the development of this country. The no money syndrome will rather depress people. People will not be happy and the production that you want to, that you expect, can never be achieved if workers are hungry and not happy to work. If you pay workers well, they work very, very well. As Mr. Osengame said, will tell you that if you pretend to pay workers, they also pretend to work, and you can never achieve your production.
Okay,
so pay workers well, let them work their work out, and you achieve whatever they want.
Let me ask the two union leaders before I come to you, Mr. Game. So 60%, is that your final offer?
Well, that is the lowest that we could.
That's the lowest.
Yes,
but nobody goes into negotiation and starts with their
well.
Final
There's always been some preliminary work done up and down and so on and so forth. So you go into the negotiations and then there are background work that goes on before the main negotiation is found, and that is what we arrived at. And
no, but just like the cola conversation, you wanted 20%. Yes. You got 15.
Yes.
So my question is, you asked for 60.
Yes.
What is the percentage below which you would?
You want the fallback position?
Yes.
Well, we are you and I.
Angel.
Yeah.
Angel.
Yeah, brother
Angel,
Joshua.
before you go there, Angel, before you go there, I want to inform Evans that if we actually wanted to come up with an exact percentage that you want, that should have been 134%. It should have been 134%, Evans. But like Kabonu is telling you, we are all human beings, and we all want this country to actually survive. And like you said, a lot of work has gone into it, and we think that that is the fallback that we can arrive at. So, Angel, you can continue.
Yeah,
Mr. Kabonu.
Yeah. So, like I said, thank you very much, brother Joshua. Let's do the extrapolations and come out to the real figure we're talking about here. And will you believe it if I tell you that there are people on the public sector wage bill taking out home 600 Ghana cedis?
No, I won't.
360. Telling you.
Which people are those?
That is what brother Joshua said.
Which people are those?
One.
Oh, our
those on step one.
Yes, drivers, people.
300 cedis.
I'm telling you.
306 cedis. Step one.
Wow.
Yes. Look.
But that's below the minimum wage.
Look, that is what we are asking the minister. That when you are saying that you are consuming X percentage of the of revenue, let's segregate the revenue properly and know who is at what level. And Evans, you will be shocked the category of workers who are taking the highest chunk of the revenue.
Which category? Which category of workers?
Oh, you know them.
You tell me.
You know them. The elite article people. You will realize those who are taking the biggest chunk of salaries in this country. But I'm telling you, people are on 600 Ghana cedis, 300 Ghana cedis.
But Mr. Kabonu, let's take that seriously.
I'm serious.
You're saying that there are people in the public service who are earning 300 Ghana cedis.
Yes.
Even at the current minimum wage of 13.53.
Yeah, so with the current minimum wage.
For 31 days, that is 419 cedis.
Yes. So
that 300 cedis is below the minimum wage.
Yes, so now that we have a new minimum wage, it may up there as the minimum.
No, but I'm saying that if somebody is indeed taking 300 cedis today,
of course,
that's below the minimum wage.
Because when taxes are taken out, then Senate is paid, Tier 2 is paid.
That's what he takes home.
Yes, that's the take home.
Okay, so the take home is
yes.
Okay.
But people are on 600. Do you know how much a graduate teacher takes in this country?
How much?
At the end of the month?
How much?
It's around 2,000.
2,000.
2,000.
So in real terms, that teacher is earning the 1,000 cedis
yes.
because of the if you take the 40.4.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is the bane of the public sector worker.
No, but I find it shocking, Mr. Kabonu. Let me bring that to you.
Evan, before that, quickly, I will want media men to demand from the Ministry of Labor, Employment and Labor Relations, Ministry of Finance, a breakdown of the salaries.
Mr. Kabonu, you've sat in the room directly with the minister. You've asked, as Mr. Ansan said, you haven't been giving.
Maybe when you do, they may give you.
Okay.
Maybe our faces are so, they've not given. So maybe when you do, they may give you. And you come back to this studio and you have the shock of your life. How much public sector workers are paid in this country?
I mean, Mr. Game. Mr. Game,
yes, my brother.
So that's the reality of the workers. 300 Ghana cedis, 600 Ghana cedis.
Well, I appreciate the dilemma in which we all find ourselves. I told you I represent the interests of a number of people in the public sector. And behind the scene, I know exactly what's going on at the negotiation table. Let me be very clear. Fortunately, Brother Angel Kabonu and I were at home together when in 2015 we ran into a similar situation. We demanded the sharing of complete, total information, if you like.
Okay.
And the information was shared. And we all came to appreciate what we should do. Whereas I share in the lamentation, I think that the law backs us sufficiently under 113C, in fact, the entirety of 113, to demand this information they are talking about. The employer has no business saying they will not give it to us. We can even go to court if that is the case. And the court will impose upon them to share that information under 97 with us. And therefore, organized labor has tremendous power to demand the prudency of the management of the national economy so that prioritization will be the order of the day in today's situation in which you find ourselves. I mean, that is the law backing organized labor than any other entity in this country. So we have to take advantage of it. I think that the next time my colleagues are going to the meeting, maybe I'll come and join them. The truth is that the employer, let me repeat it, 60% is inadequate. But if they pay it, then we must carry our luggage on our head. That's just about it.
So
what we should do.
So, Mr. Game, go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, but so if that's what's going to happen if they pay, then you're actually arguing that in reality they should be paying less than 60%.
They will eventually pay less than 60%. But my point of view here is this: there must be some assurance that all of us will share in the pains, all of us will share in the joy. Like, I agree with my colleagues there that people should not, at this particular point in time, no group of people should be made to take the chunk of the money, because we can see just these three items. Even our pension is at stake. Our various other things are at stake. People's health is deteriorating. And that should be of priority to us. And so we must demand from the employer, which is also government, to share, to bring the information. We don't need to ask the media to ask it. The law backs us to demand it, and they must bring it. And when they bring it, we tell them how we see it, because the law says you must go and talk about the importance of the national economy to you. That is what the law says. And it is not for them to tell us that we will not give you or we will give you. They have no choice. That's the point I'm saying. So I share in the pain, I share in the lamentation, but we have to approach it with, there has to be a paradigm shift. And Angel Kabonu and I were at home. We were all at Senchi, we were all at Takrady, and we saw the result. So I think we have to go back to, the basis and make sure that we demand accountability. That's just a point.
Mr. Mensah, the budget has been scheduled for Thursday. So in effect, you have 48 hours to reach an agreement that will then reflect in the budget. What is the timelines for you? Do you hope this will be done tomorrow before the budget at least is read on Thursday? What's the arrangement? Sorry, Mr. Mensah, I think you've muted. Please unmute for me.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Good. Evans, whose fault is this? The law says that minimum wages and base pay should be negotiated by the end of April. In the year before, in 2023, minimum wage and base pay should have been concluded in April 2022. So whose fault is it that we have not yet finished? We started doing something in August. Why has they waited until today that you know that 24 hours or 48 hours you are going to read the budget and want to force something down our throat? I don't think it's fair. So whether the budget will be read or not, that one, we don't look there, because we want something good for our members. We have been very supportive. We have been we have sacrificed a lot. How do you wait until 24 hours or 48 hours, then we come and negotiate a very important article in the Constitution, a very important article in the Labor Act, minimum wage and base pay, and you want us to take 40 hours to discuss it? I mean, somebody say that it's a strategy to force something down our throat, but that is not going to happen. If government really want to read the budget as scheduled, then they must be prepared to give in for workers' demand so that they can read the budget. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. I let my senior brother Austin saying that definitely it's going to be something less than that. Let's pray, because from the discussions we have had from the 140 percentage point up to the 60%, I'm afraid if we are going to go down again. But let's pray, like Mr. Sangama said, we are all in this country, if something should be done. But otherwise, then they are in for a tough negotiations tomorrow and the 48 hours. We were quoting some figures, and I want to reiterate that I still say that the first step on the single spine pay structure is 306. This is what people earn on the pay structure.
I insist, Mr. Ansan, if it's 306,
yes,
that's below the minimum wage.
Yes, that's the base pay, yes. You see, the essence of the base pay was for the base pay to be 10% higher than the minimum wage. But here, the base pay is less than the minimum wage. Now that the base pay has been moved to 14.88, it means that we should bring up the base pay to the 4.88 plus 10%, and that will give us the first step. And that alone gives us 40 something plus something percent. So the 60% we are asking, Mr. Gama is aware that it's nothing to write home about. But like he's saying that when they pay, then you have to travel to Togo. Maybe everybody should start packing his bag and baggage, because there's no way that workers are going to take anything less than that.
Okay.
We are serious about it, because we have sacrificed a lot.
Mr. Kabalo.
So I will advise, if we should travel to Togo or go to Cote d'Ivoire, then you should start packing our bag and baggages, because it is going to be very, very, very tough. You know that if even you take the 60%, the real effect is that the workers are going to pay 19.something%.
Yeah, 19.4% if you take out the inflation. But Mr. Kabono, the big problem is what he's touched on. You have 48 hours to do this.
Yeah, that is what Brother Joshua is saying, that the law indicates that we should have concluded negotiations in April.
But you're supposed to meet today. What happened?
They did not send the invitation. The invitation came this evening, inviting us for
Tuesday,
2 o'clock. Okay. Are you with me? From April to now, what were we doing? People thought that if they could delay, then they could push everybody or force things down our throat. We don't read budget. So whether you are reading the budget next week or next year, it's not the issue. The issue is that workers from the 1st of January 2020.
But you know, I mean, considering how big a line item compensation is in government budget.
That is why the government
There's no way the budget can be read without this agreement.
Yes, that is why the budget ought to take, the government ought to take the negotiations seriously. That is why the law specifies that start negotiations in April and read the budget in November.
Okay,
so that you have ample time for you to iron out.
Do you expect an agreement by the close of day tomorrow or the latest close of day Wednesday?
If he wants to read the budget on Thursday, then he will have to close negotiations tomorrow.
And you're saying that you're not going to come down and not going to budge on the 60%?
What figure is in the document he's holding? Because in a serious...
Okay, but when you went to the meeting last week, what was government's offer?
Well, I will not want to divulge details of negotiations because it flies at the face of good labor practice. Mm-hmm. But government offer was not accepted by the workers.
So that is why it ended inconclusive?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so you're expecting that tomorrow when they come, they'll offer a different...
We expect they'll offer a different and a significant figure from what they offered the last...
Other than that, what will happen?
Other than that, there'll be a deadlock.
But that can happen because of the budget.
Yes, if there is a deadlock, there are actions workers ought to take.
Which is?
When we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. But what I'm saying now is that if the minister wants to read his budget on Thursday, then there ought to be a figure he's holding up to his chest. What figure is that? Because the moment there is a change in 1% of the figure the minister is holding to his chest, it will have a cascading effect on all other figures within the budget.
And you're saying whatever figure he's holding to his chest must better be 60% or more.
your words.
If it's less,
Then there will
because
not be-
Austin Gamet
Then there'll be a deadlock.
Austin Gamet says that he's very confident that you end up paying less than 60%.
Well, let's get to the negotiation tomorrow, 2 o'clock.
But would you feel pressure though because of the budget,
Yes.
pending
see,
budget?
Yes. Look, see, one, our downlines are expecting something that will significantly improve their wherewithal.
Okay.
Are you with me? So leadership does not just get up and go on its own will to make statements or to come up with figures. Leadership reflects the drumbeat of its people down there.
Okay.
You are leading people, right? And the people tell you, this is our wherewithal. This is the life we are leading. We are not able to take transport. We are not able to go to work. When we go to work, we are not feeding our families. The facts that they adduce are realities that all of us know.
Okay.
So that is what it is.
Okay, so tomorrow is the D-Day, make or break really, because if it doesn't
It
happen, the
ought
budget.
to be concluded tomorrow by 6 p.m. It ought to be concluded.
Angel Kabodo, thank you, Mr. Sansa, I'm grateful. And Austin Gamet. Austin Gamet says he's offering to join you. So let's see if he comes along tomorrow. All roads lead to this very important negotiation, possibly the most critical we've had in a long, long time because of the timing of it, the economic circumstances of it, whether the finance minister himself will read it or not, and he has a part. It's a whole different conversation. We're going to watch this space I'm interested because whatever they agree, I can also hold that and come to my employer and say, even the public sector workers are getting this. What about me? We are all
Join the fray. Join the fight.
we are all interested in what happens tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening.